Welcome to In Phase, In Tune with Autism, the podcast. I'm your host, Eileen Email. Together, we're shifting away from old paradigms and stepping into a new way of thinking when it comes to relating to the non-speaking autistic population. One that presumes competence in the intellect, acknowledges the brain-body disconnect, and honors the profound spiritual roles that these individuals may be playing in our rising consciousness as a human race. It's time to connect with our intuition and get truly in phase. Let's begin. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. I am so happy you are here, and the streams are going up every week, so I want to thank you for tuning in. So for this particular podcast, I love it so much. It's me and my husband having great conversation about important subject matters, but the audio definitely messed it up in the beginning and here and there. So just wanted to give you a warning and bear with me. I feel like it's a great conversation. And once you get through the first couple of minutes, the audio should be a little bit better for you. And we're still learning and we're working on it. And hopefully the quality will turn out better and better each time. But thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy, and message me if you would like. All right. Bye.
That was another.
Welcome to the In Phase, In Tune with Autism podcast. My name is Eileen Email. I am your host, and I'm the owner of a company called In Phase, In Tune with Autism, and I serve the non-speaking autistic population and their families through the lens of presuming competence, training purposeful movement, working with nervous system regulation. And this is my husband, Blake. Blake, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Blake. I'm Eileen's husband. I'm a chiropractor, so I have some knowledge and experience clinically working with people of all sorts. I'm very interested in these things. Me and Eileen have these conversations all the time over tea. So I'm making tea right now. And now we're recording them, and
Yeah.
that's it, you know?
A lot of passionate talks during tea sessions on Saturdays, which is what we're doing now. And a lot of the times, you know, we feel like our careers intertwine in so many different ways, and he's very interested in the integrative reflexes deal. And, you know, obviously I'm very interested in whatever is going to help my clients function better and have more access to their purposeful motor. And so this series that we're doing today is called Dreaming for the Future of Non-Speaking Autistics. And today what I'm bringing through is I'll tell the story of how I was inspired to create a school for non-speaking autistics. And what I dream of in the future are schools, are centers that are serving from a certain point of view with core concepts as the foundation. And we're going to be going over the core concepts today. I had made a little mini series on it a long time ago on TikTok, and I'll probably be reposting those, but going over those core concepts. And
Dirt bike.
the dirt bike keeps like interrupting my flow. It's okay.
You're talking about telling your story about what inspired you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I'll be telling that story about what inspired me so strongly for creating a school, and how it's been coming back to my awareness and to my thoughts. And I'll tell about that on the spiritual series. Okay. So stay tuned for that. But today we're talking about these core concepts. And so number one core concept that is the foundation for my future schools, that is going to be taught by staff, that is going to be practiced by staff, and we're going to center our education around, is presuming competence. Presuming competence in the population that we are working with, in their intellect, understanding that their comprehension and awareness has nothing to do with their motor systems and what their body is doing. Understanding that at a deep level, at many different angles, which I discuss in a lot of my content. Yeah, and so what presuming competence is whenever you understand that the person on the inside comprehends everything, and that they're understanding at their age level or above. Yeah. And treating them as if they are their age, and with respect and with dignity.
Yeah, when you say it, it sounds like small thing. Yeah, presumed competence, good, we're good to go. But it can be a huge shift from the regular way of things, especially the way that this population is kind of treated and educated currently, right?
100%. It's way different than how the current mainstream paradigm perceives non-speaking autistics and how they treat non-speaking autistics, in my opinion. It can be said so simply and just a passing thing, but it's so multi-layered when you really learn what it takes to apply this and integrate this into your lifestyle and your treatments.
I mean, I haven't been in the schools like you have been, and I haven't seen as many interactions that you've seen. But I think about the things that you've told me that you see in like some of the schools that you go in and work with kids in. And maybe the kid isn't like listening. So they're like telling them like, no, you gotta do this and that. And it's like, to some extent, a conversation like that almost presumes competence. Like, you can hear me and you can do better. But that one actually doesn't acknowledge like the motor deficiency piece.
Not at all.
So I think, just the presuming competence piece is recognizing that you're there all day, but like you said a second ago, your physical body isn't reflecting that. So it's presuming competence despite whatever the body is showing you.
100%. And that's one of the, I said that we had already did a recording of this and our technology got messed up. But that's one of the major points that we said is so important when you are presuming competence at the highest level and trying to integrate it the best way you can to serve whatever student or serve your child, is you have to unlearn every single meaning that you put on what a motor system does. So the meaning that we put on what listening and attending is if somebody's sitting still, if they're looking at you, if they're giving eye contact, if they're nodding their head yes, you assume they understand what I'm saying and they're comprehending it. Motor does not equal comprehension. And I'll give an example in the opposite direction. Whenever you're telling me something about maps and you're giving me directions and I'm smiling and nodding my head nodding my head as if I'm understanding everything he's saying with my motor, that's what I'm showing. On the inside, I really have no idea what he's saying, and I really don't understand any of it. So, just like when an autistic person might be bouncing on a ball or running around the room while I'm teaching a lesson, and I'm having the intention to connect with their auditory, with their auditory channel, and I'm connecting with, I know the part of them that's comprehending what I'm saying and attending to what I'm saying, even though they're not showing the motor of listening. I know that they're listening, and then they're able to demonstrate that whenever I bring up the board and ask questions. So listening, what we've been conditioned to think, and that's just one small example to help you understand, what we've been conditioned to think what it looks like, it may not be what it looks like. So know that the non-speaker, even though they may be processing energy, they may be moving energy, moving around the room, and not giving you that I'm sitting down and I'm listening motor look, they're still listening, they're still comprehending.
Yeah. And it's what I hear you saying, and we've talked about this stuff before, but presuming competence isn't just like, oh, I believe you're capable or whatever. It's also a difference in the person who is presuming too.
100%. 100%, because this is a good point. Whenever it's a big shift from old paradigm, really having low expectations of this population, because that's what we've been conditioned to do, that's what we've been taught, moving to full on, okay, I presume competence in your intellect, I believe that you're comprehending this. In the beginning, when you're making that shift with your thoughts, words, and actions in relations towards this person, you're gonna feel like you're pretending, because you're really pretending, but you are having that intention to go in there with, okay, I want to embody this belief. I want to embody the belief that this person is fully comprehending and connecting with me beyond what their body is doing. So you might feel like you're pretending, but just go with it. Just keep practicing, because one day you're gonna feel it. You're gonna feel that energetic connection beyond your body, beyond their body, where it's, you're in synergy, you're in coherence, and you know that they're listening. And you're connecting with them beyond the body. Just like you can see them and their body is physically there, you start to connect with the sense of, I can feel them and I can feel that we're connected. And that, if you continue to practice, that becomes palpable. That becomes something that you tune into. My tagline, in tune with autism, when I named it that, I was very uneducated on this. I was only going on a whim of like, I feel pulled to do this. And I had no idea how important that would actually be and how true and real that actually is.
Yeah.
So that's what I aim for with each one of my clients. And I talk to you about it. Like, I'm not perfect. There's some clients where it's like, we are on the same page. Like, even if they're punching a wall, like, we're still on the same page, and I know I can bring them back. And then there's other clients that I'm still working with where I'm like, I'm looking for you. Where are you? You know? And that's okay. It's a practice. Yeah.
That's good stuff, you know? Like, imagine, like, if we went to a school where even as neurotypical kids, they presumed competence in us, you know? Instead of being like, hey, you are now a part of this system, and we're going to indoctrinate you into what we're going to do. And who you are, who you think you are, who you should grow to be, we're going to squash that because we're going to create you into who we want you to be.
Babe, I could resonate with that more.
This goes beyond.
This goes beyond.
The non-speaking autistic community, but into all reaches of our society and education system, really. But anyway.
Truly does. And this movement is going to be creating such an impact. And I think that is a conversation for like the spiritual series, but I agree.
Yeah, so I think to feel into that idea of what it means to presume competence, or what it might feel like for somebody to believe in you. Imagine yourself as a kid if you were ever in a situation where it's like felt misunderstood, felt forced to do things that you didn't want to do or that other people wanted to do, or had to follow the rules to whatever. Imagine if somebody was open-minded in their interaction with you, that you're capable of more than even you believed yourself to be capable of. And that's just a beautiful way to interact.
There's so much to be said there. 100% what you said, and I want to speak to the fact that, like, even though you just said it, you know, what would it feel like to have somebody believe in you, somebody be open-minded to, you know, what you could expand on and who you really are, all those things. And when we say it, it sounds like a really nice, beautiful thing. It sounds like, you know, probably in some people's minds who are more cynical, kind of like woo-woo, like yeah. But here we go. It's an actual thing that can have momentum and can allow things to happen, especially when it comes to this population who do not have direct access to their purposeful motor and need to be coached into it. Okay, let's untangle that a little bit, because the real science that is there, which saying that we're always holding an embodiment. We all have an energetic field, right? That like goes around, it attracts things, it repels things. So it's a real thing. You know, there's belief and then there's disbelief. But when you're leaning towards the scale of my signal that I'm embodying and sending out is more truly embodied in belief with my energy from my thoughts, energy from my words, energy from my actions, then that's a real thing that has energy, like the wind. You know, you can't see the wind, but the wind will blow your hair, or it'll blow your house down if it's like as strong as a hurricane, right? If your signal in that direction is strong enough, the connection and synergy and the things that can be allowed to happen with you and the relationship with the non-speaker and you coaching them, there's so much more that can be accessed to. So like that confidence and belief that in your body is a real and palpable thing, even though it's, you know, we say it as a word, right?
Yeah. Think of types of motivation or reinforcement for doing a certain thing. Because, you know, in the ABA world, it's all like operant condition and external reinforcements. But the most powerful reinforcement for all of us is like intrinsic motivation.
Oh my gosh, that is such a good point.
So like if you as a kid feel like that person believes in me, then I don't care if you give me like candy or toys to do something. It's like fulfilling that relationship connection thing is way more important and way more motivating, you know?
So true, way more motivating. And there's two things that I want to say about that. And the second one will be asking you about what you brought up about expectation in the first failed recorded podcast. But the first thing I want to say, for an example of, you know, when you're presuming competence and how it can bring about that intrinsic motivation in a person. I've had the experience of being an ABA therapist, not being in the presuming competence world yet. And the idea behind the ABA modality is you increase behavior or decrease behavior. You modify behavior by using outside reinforcement. And so I had the client who I love so much, who basically across the clinic I was working at, it was known that he had no outside reinforcer. Like, he didn't like candy, he didn't want candy, he didn't want toys. It's like he wasn't, or at least he didn't show us that, right? And so it's like, how do you make him work, right? But then I started working with him within the the lens of presuming competence and using the letter board and training purposeful movement, and that intrinsic motivation was absolutely there. He was so happy every single time to be, at the time I was seeing him at my apartment. This is when I first started. He was so happy to be at my apartment, and I didn't have to try hard at all to get him to respond.
Yeah.
And it was because I was talking to him at an age appropriate level and engaging with him like he'd never been engaged with it before. Because his programs, ABA wise, were the lowest that I've ever seen because you couldn't get him to respond. I love what you said about intrinsic motivation, because my mind was so blown when I started working with clients in this way, this new paradigm thinking of what I call it, that all these clients were responding without a cookie, without a Skittle, without an iPad. I couldn't even believe it.
Yeah. I remember seeing that you'd work with people in our apartment, and I remember you'd kind of give them breaks, and if you were to like imagine like, oh, is this person listening or anything like that, or how are you going to get them back into this chair to sit still when during the break they're kind of all over the place. But then as soon as you're like, all right, back to it, and they stop and they go and they sit down. And I remember you telling me that in the ABA setting, like that was impossible to get them to do, but just by like, hey, we're going to do something where we're recognizing you as a person who's capable, and we're going to do something new that acknowledges that piece of you, that's engaged in things that you're interested with, that changes the whole behavior, context, and results.
100%. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. And so do you want to speak at all to what you had said about expectation and what that...
Yeah, so in the failed recording, it's there somewhere probably,
right.
But you were talking about presuming competence, and I was talking about how if you believe that a person is only capable of so much, and that's what you expect them to operate and function up to,
yes,
even if they try to demonstrate their real competence and their skill level or their intelligence, you would never even perceive of their real abilities. So your expectations on their level of competence is going to impact how much they can show you in return, because you'll never identify it, because the communication isn't normal speaking language like we're all used to and that we all grew up with,
Yes, this is so important. This is so important when talking about our first core foundational piece of the future schools of presuming competence. So the way that I teach it is when you have an expectation of what you interpret or perceive of someone, especially when it comes to the non-speaking autistic population, it's like thinking of this being within this V, within this angle. I'm making a V with my hands, basically acute angle, right? Within this angle, this is what you are allowed to see and interpret from them. So that's only as much as they're able to show you of how smart they are and how much they understand, and they can only demonstrate this piece. So you want to broaden your expectations so there's more room for them to show you.
I remember that client that you're talking about that you love so much, that you saw in both the ABA and the spelling context. I remember you saying that they believed that he didn't know his colors, even though that was like way past his
and his numbers and his letters. Like nobody believed that he knew anything, really.
So if that's your belief that, hey, this kid doesn't know his numbers, doesn't know his colors, and you do a program like, hey, click touch this color, and he does it, you'd be like, that was a fluke.
Oh,
that wasn't real.
100%.
That wasn't on purpose. He doesn't actually know. It's just an accident,
Right. And especially because when we talked about, listening, having a look, and responding, having a look, we think that, like, responding and engagement looks like, okay, I'm activated, I'm putting my hand out, and I'm touching this. Like, this particular child, he was so cute. He would just have this little, nonchalant look on his face and big eyes, and when he would touch things, he would slowly bring his hand out and just kind of smack his hand down. And so it didn't look like the typical, like, oh, I have somebody engaged with me and they're like responding. So you would assume it was a fluke, right? And that very much wasn't the case. Whenever I started working with him in the letterboards presuming competence way, he had no trouble responding accurately. He knew his letters, he knew his colors, he knew his numbers, and then we noticed, okay, he's actually way smarter than we thought. And he expressed, I like to dance. One day I want to teach about what I'm going through. And every time I didn't respond is because I couldn't make my body respond. And this is so very true and accurate because his parents knew nothing about this world. And when they became open with him, this is what he expressed. And so all those times where it looked like, people will categorize him as lazy and like he didn't want to do it, he couldn't do it. There wasn't that, grounded connection for him to be able to slow the sensory stuff down that he was experiencing, find that place in his motor where he could initiate and really feel his hands and respond, right? Until he was able to access it through, the letterboard process. Yeah, and presuming competence.
Yeah, so it starts presuming competence, recognizing that you're capable, and then it's a matter of building strength through repetition, which probably brings us to point number 2 on your list.
Yeah, okay, so the point number 2 is, of these core concepts, is understanding the brain-body disconnect and apraxia in this population. And also, I wrote down, it's very important, especially when it comes to people who have aggressive tendencies and OCD tendencies, like heavy OCD tendencies. They really need us to understand the brain-body disconnect and apraxia.
Yeah, so having that as like a core principle in a school, it lays the philosophy and the point of view that everybody can orient towards these kids, recognizing that, oh, this kid isn't bad because they're hitting things. It's a lack of voluntary control.
It's a lack of voluntary control. And it's what we talked about earlier in the failed recording. It's when the body is in a state of chronic elicited stress response, right? Chronic, high beta brain waves where the whole entire muscular system, the muscle memory is that of stress, is that of practice and conditioned impulses, reflexes, those types of things. Going to the first point, presuming competence, connecting with the person and the energy inside, or connecting with the person inside, starting to really understand, okay, what does their purposeful movement look like? And what is the conscious motor? Connecting on that, growing that, coaching that, expanding that, and then realizing, okay, all these things here, this is impulsive. This is conditioned. This is reflexive. Knowing that those things are not purposeful. Yeah. And I was mentioning that it's really important, the people who have those aggressive tendencies and OCD tendencies, those things are so fast and momentous and so under conscious awareness. It's like a roller coaster that they're riding on, right? And it's so important for coaches to understand that, for families to understand that, because there's so much hurt. That's already stressful. It's already stressful. And there's so much hurt that can happen between the relationship there if you don't first understand that this is not purposeful. And I know this firsthand. I deal with this every week. I work with a client who has to overcome a series of impulses of maybe slapping the board out of my hand, slapping my hand, scratching my hand, even sometimes punching the wall or busting the door open, because at this point in time, we do believe it's biomedical and they're working on it, but at this point in time, anything and everything can set his body into higher stress. But every single session, we overcome all those impulses and we're able to, through a series of nervous system regulation things and purposeful movement things, we're able to have him tune in to regulation, and he starts to yawn. We activate the vagus nerve by humming, and then it's okay, my body is ready to spell. But if people don't know this about him, he's stuck. He's completely stuck. And so there's all these kids and families out there who have no support in this way. And what I want with these schools is for people to be trained on this, to understand this. So when these kids who spend 8 hours of their day at school, so they're not locked in a room by themselves, so they have people who understand this, who can bring them back down to regulation and coach motor and have muscle memory head to toe of this is regulation and this is how I respond purposefully. And let me tell you, it's not freaking easy, but it's worth it. And we need more people trained in that arena.
Yeah.
Hands down. Hands down. I don't know if you have anything else to say on that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted to just mention the thing that, like, the organization in my head about all that. It's like recognizing that the person inside is separate from the body's behaviors and activities.
Yeah.
Recognizing that the person inside understands competence, presumably competence, but the body and the behaviors that you see are reflexive conditioned patterns that just automatically happen, not on purpose, because of the stimulus of the world around them. And that's going to be heightened and more when we're in a state of fight or flight stress.
Right.
So you're talking about these schools recognizing that brain-body disconnect, recognizing the need for regulation, and the overstimulated stress state is so prevalent that creating an environment that's nice and relaxed is paramount important and it required for building the intentional, on-purpose type of movements that you want to reinforce over and over, so that the person inside can have better control of the physical body.
That is it, and that perfectly brings us to the next point of these core concepts for a foundation for school and centers, which is promoting regulation in the environment in every which way. And I have a lot of ideas on this, and I don't know if I mentioned this here before, but it's like, obviously, they spend hours a day in school, and so it's everyone having an awareness on this and the environment being built in that direction. Because I also want to point out, like, the environment doesn't have to seem stressful for a person to be in fight or flight. So it can be quiet, there cannot be a lot of stuff in the room, but because of what that person's experiencing, they can still be in that high beta brainwave where it's like, I'm in reflexive mode. If you pass near me, I'm going to like punch you in the arm, you know? And that's still not purposeful. It's just they're in that state and the amygdala is firing off. That is the only thing they have access to, is those impulses and those conditioned loops and movements.
Yeah, it's true for all of us.
But people don't understand.
If our pattern, if our nervous system is accustomed to a pattern of fight or flight or stress, you now go into a quiet area where all you have is your thoughts. That is stressful. So it requires practice to get used to that, so that your new resting state is, okay, I'm now regulated in a calm, regulated environment. Right. Because if you grow up, if you're conditioned to fight or flight stress all the time, even though that is stressful and even though that prevents you from having a more regulated, purposeful ability to live your life, it's what your nervous system is used to, and it's what it's going to go towards. So you get into a calm environment now, and it's havoc.
100%. I mean, that is 100%. That's why this needs to be coached. You literally need to be like the grounding rod to connect. This is why presuming competence is so important, to connect with that person inside and say, hey, I understand that you're lost in this roller coaster. Hey, I'm here. And one of my clients actually helped me to develop ways to do this. He said, I need people to be calm. I need them to direct my body and give me calm, slow direction. And so that's what I started doing. So I acknowledge and I see what's there. And I state the dysregulation that I see, and I tell him to start tuning into whatever he can, to start hooking onto my voice, hooking onto the bubble that we're in, and I'm going to help you gain that regulation. I mean, I do this every single week, and this person that I'm thinking about, I mean, he's just amazing in showing me that he's right there with me, and he's able to come down every week. And wait, where were you? You said something else. What did you say just now?
I don't know, but I have a thought here. Just thinking of like an example.
Oh, okay. Sorry. No, I was just gonna say, what you were saying is what your nervous system is doing is what it's been programmed to do and what it's done for a long time. That's what it's going to continue to do until there's going to be a pattern interrupt, somebody to come in and coach you out of that pattern. And, you know, this applies to us neurotypicals as well, which we don't understand. But I've noticed this in my journey of, you know, inner work. Is like really, you know, I've been really called, obviously, to this mission to speak up about this, to say what I think. And I had been so conditioned to keep my mouth shut. There's been multiple times where I could not open my freaking mouth to say what I wanted to say. And when I did, what came out was so much nervous energy. So it was not purposeful. It's what I had been patterned to do, conditioned to do. So this applies to all of us in different ways, which gets to the spiritual side, which we can talk about in the spiritual series of like what they're highlighting for us within.
So you were mentioning that if we're in a stressed, overstimulating environment and you have a non-speaking autistic person who is in that state of fight or flight, for them to come back into regulation, they need a guide, help to act as a grounding rod to base them back and like, hey,
ground them.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking, like, I'm sure some people might hear that and be like, you know, like somebody else is going to regulate me. I mean, that's a real thing. Regardless of
co-regulation.
Yeah, I was just thinking of an example. Like if you imagine, like it's nighttime, you're lost in the wood with like a few other people in the woods. It's dark. It's kind of scary. You know, you got a flashlight, but when you shine the light, it makes it even scarier. But you're kind of lost, and like you can imagine that you feel some anxiety, some fear around that, and maybe you got somebody with you who's like incredibly anxious and scared and voicing all their fears around you, or you can just see the anxiety and fear in their face. Like that won't make you feel better about your ability to navigate these woods.
No.
But if you're with somebody who's like, dude, we got this. Like we're together. We're gonna find our way. We know these woods. We're in the daylight. It's just a little confusing because it's nighttime. We'll be patient. We'll keep being persistent and we'll move through. Like you're gonna feel way better about your ability to like get out of that stressful environment, you know.
So true. And I've had multiple clients express this to me recently, actually, about how helpful the belief is and the coaching is. And they've said, you know, one of them said, even the little things that go right, put confidence in those things. Keep doing those things. Because whenever you spend your time in that other arena with all the fear, and he even said this, he said, fear, you know, think of it as a waterfall and each drop pools. And the amount of fear that pools will say if the waterfall comes down like super, you know, harshly and so much, or just gently, you know. And he explained it that way. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Like he was saying, he said the water that pools for the waterfall, and he's saying the water was like fear, he was describing it that way, the more that they have of it, it's going to come down like a waterfall. He was like, yeah, he was like comparing it to the situations that happen with his body. Or if it's like less fear, the more gently it'll come down. I think he's just trying to make us understand, because, you know, they're the ones living it and they're trying to make us understand. So yes, that brings us to the next piece of ground concept for future schools and centers is promoting regulation. Promoting regulation for multiple reasons. And one of the reasons is that, and this is probably the most important reason, with the brain-body disconnect, you can grow more connection. These people can lay down the neural pathways for more conscious control over their motor system. But the only way to do that is if the brain is going to be in a state of safety, in a state of a place where the brain can actually be neuroplastic and be formed and molded to create new motor pathways. And so in order to put all this good stuff in that we're talking about coaching motor and all that, what first needs to happen is the person needs to be in a state of regulation, which is the most important. And I feel like that's missed like everywhere. That's missed everywhere. This is what I put into my practice every single day, but this isn't prevalent. Obviously not in mainstream in schools. So regulation would be talked about and educated on every single day and practice. Like I envision every single morning staff, I'm leading practice and regulation and people getting in their bodies. And this, again, another spiritual piece, they're waking us up to the sensations in our body. So many of us live in our freaking heads that we don't even feel our bodies. And they're bringing us back to these things because they're forcing us, not forcing us, but like directing us to pay attention. Yeah, regulation to be in a state where the brain can be neuroplastic and purposeful motor can be accessed and trained. Yeah. Trust. I have trust written down here.
That's like another point.
Just for regulation.
Oh.
One of my clients will just spell out trust like randomly, and I think he's just like, this is what we need, you know.
Yeah, I imagine trust is going to be your compass in the unknown. You know what I mean? Like we talked, or you mentioned, I don't remember if it was on this one or the recording attempt before this, but about like developing your attunement with your intuition. And one of the most difficult pieces about that is about like trusting your own guidance, because so many of us look to the outside like, what's the right way? I don't know what it is. Maybe somebody else knows, you know?
Right.
And yeah, maybe somebody else does know, but even what their knowledge is probably won't fit you 100%, and you'll need to modify it for your own situation. So a lot of that trust in your intuition becomes important. And the same thing, like working with a kid who's never done spelling before, or who's working on developing regulation and more purposeful movement and strengthening motor pathways, all that requires a good bit of trust that, hey, if I keep doing this, it's going to work. Even if day after day, session after session, it doesn't look like there's much progress.
Yeah. Yes, all of that. And a few things came to mind. You were saying that Katie Asher, I used to work with her kid, and they taught me a lot about everything. She's so smart. She talks about, you imagine when you were riding a bike as a kid, like you needed that trust from the person who was helping you. If they didn't believe that you could do it, and they were kind of like wobbling on the bike with you and all of that, how would you be able to move forward? How would you be able to stay seated on the bike and be like, okay, I'm going to do this? It's exactly like that. So they need to be able to feel that from you in order to move forward in the spelling relationship. And that's one of the criticisms. They're like, well, why can this person spell with this person, but they can't spell with anybody else? Like, it's not generalizable. And that's like the biggest crock of bullshit.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I know that you don't understand.
Yeah, about this, why
you say that to me.
Why some people you sit down and have a conversation with, it's easy, it's flowy, it's great, and some people it's like,
why can't you poo in a toilet and not in a pull-up? I'm gonna edit that out. No, I won't.
But what I was thinking about a second ago when it comes to trust and regulation is when so like we mentioned before, if your body's conditioned to operate in fight or flight stress, that's the pattern for you. When you start trying to come back down into more regulation, there's a pretty good chance the fight or flight is going to be inflamed, and you'll get some episodes that look a lot worse.
It's not a pretty good chance. I feel like it's guaranteed.
Yeah.
I do. Like
the
when
old
you start
patterns are going to fight back.
Oh, the old patterns will absolutely fight back, because that is your system being like, wait, we're letting go of what we've known for so long. And the way your program system works is like, what I've known is what's safe because I'm still alive. Like, that's what evolution does. It's like, okay, I do what I did before because that kept me alive. Yeah. So when you start putting other things in, oh, you better believe it's going to ramp up, because I've seen it in my clients and I've also seen it in myself. Yeah. So
trust is required to keep doing that thing that looks like it's making things worse.
Yes.
But really it's just shaking up old systems. So you're going to get some rebellion.
You will get rebellion for sure, for a little while. Let's see, just a little bit to talk about the ways that regulation would be promoted. Hold on, something else is coming to me. Hold the intuition thought. Just let's come back to intuition.
Okay.
But so some ways to promote regulation in a space like this. You know, we had talked about a few different things. We talked about different vibrations and frequencies, maybe in the floors. You remember we talked about that? Maybe having access to different vests. They're called the what vest? Wooger vest, which is it's vibrational input that can be set at a certain frequency to give these people input. What I see is I've used sound a lot in my own journey to help regulate myself. I use it every single day, and so I see like a whole space for sounds and different light frequencies, and maybe even like temperature in the room, and having these kids every single day like, okay, it's time for your sound clearing. And this is where it gets like woo-woo to people, but the truth is, and this will bring us to our next point a little bit, but these people are affected by other people's energetic fields. They are experiencing everything at a high caliber. You know, I'm speaking very generally, but most of them in different ways. This has been true for everyone that I've ever worked with. And so they need things to come into their field and basically neutralize, move, transmute, and clear out their field. And so that it's like promoting regulation in that way. I see a lot of space, and that's going to bring me to another point. So maybe I'll just discuss these points here. You know, a lot of these kids yearn to be alone. to not have somebody looking over their freaking shoulder, telling them what to do, telling them what not to do. Now, I do understand this is very necessary for their safety in so many ways to have somebody with them all the time because they don't have control over their motor in many ways. But I see, you know, obviously like a very spacious but like fenced in space where they have a lot of space to just like go and have time during the day to just like not have someone in their friggin' aura, you know, so they can just like be alone. And I always think of the story that one of my past clients, JP, who was on the telepathy tapes, if you've listened, and his mom says that one time when they were on vacation, like he straight up in the middle of the night left and went to like the lake or wherever they were. It was intentional just to be alone, just to be alone. Like, can you imagine? I mean, I get it, because sometimes when I'm alone, like I feel like, oh my God, I can breathe now. I start, you know, dancing naked in the house like a crazy person and doing all these like, you know, weird things. And I'm gonna edit this out. No, I won't.
Yeah, I think for me, when you talk about what the education center of the school would have to promote regulation, you're talking about sound and sensation, all that. Mm-hmm. To me, we're engaging the sensory part of the nervous system on all the different ways that you can get that. And a lot of like standard like sensory rooms, whatever, do the same thing, you know, just stuff to engage all the different ways that your nervous system wants input. And if we're lacking some of that, so when you're like before being born as a baby, your development, for it to happen appropriately and for you to have a good nervous system that is able to accommodate all the different experiences that you're going to experience in life, you need to be exposed to a ton of different sensory experiences. And if you're not, there's a good chance that your nervous system is not going to develop fully in sync. And with this population, we already know that that is the case, you know? So having a wide variety of sensory experiences available can maybe help to balance and fill some of those gaps that you just don't get in everyday life, you know? So engage in sounds, sights, smells, physical touch, movement, vibration, proprioception, balance, swinging, all this sort of stuff can be good to provide the nervous system with what it desires. Because if it doesn't have the appropriate amount of input, and if things didn't develop right early on in life, then that's going to be a stressor that's always there. Because, I didn't get the appropriate amount of joint input growing up. You know, my nervous system wasn't able to get accustomed to what it feels like to have pressure on the bottom of my feet or whatever. And maybe it's not because that wasn't available. Maybe it's because something in the development process interfered with that normal event happening at the right time.
Right.
So having all those things available is going to be important to help to start to develop that in the nervous system more, but also to establish more balance throughout the whole nervous system, which is going to lead to more regulation.
Right. I think all the things that we're talking about to be able to be practiced and stabilized in the body has to do with them being in regulation too. Yeah.
And of course, there's a lot more to regulation than just like sensory input. Like you're talking about the desire to be alone. Like any of us, if we're in a stressful, overwhelmed environment, we pretty much just want to get out to like decompress. And that is definitely something that you mentioned that you're not going to do with a kid that you're constantly worried about.
No.
You know? So if you can have a safe environment to do that, like that would be great.
Yeah, and that's what I want for them. And you know, while you're speaking about that, it's the intuitive piece too. As a coach or a staff member who's going to work here in the future, it's attuning to each kid and understanding, okay, what they need to regulate right now in this moment, and also to promote practice for long-term regulation is space. They need space right now, and that's okay. We don't need to force work right now. We don't need to force anything right now. And it's like having that intuition to know that, and you know, another client comes to my mind right now is this kid actually needs me right now. They need my regulation. They need me to coach them out of what they're experiencing. And I know that they're receptive enough, and we have built that trust for me to coach them out of that. So it's like having that accessible to these kids all day long. Like, oh, you need space? Take your space. Oh, you need the sound? Oh, you need the pressure? Here it is. Oh, you need me to coach you out of this? Here I am. And to me, the idea would be like, you know, for each one of these kids, obviously, like we all go through, it's like there's up and downs, right? But I would imagine that in the beginning when they first come, it's like maybe more downs, but as over times it's going up. Like even though we have up and downs, it's like progressively going up. So they're spending more and more time in trust, more and more time in their conscious motor, and teaching families to do these things. Like I imagine having classes once a month or twice a month, and where we're teaching everything that we're doing at the center or the school. And there's a piece about trusting your intuition, and I'd talked about it, and I think it's important to mention. I'm going to mention it. This is one of the reasons why it's so important to develop the hearing towards your intuition, because we all have an intuition. We're animals. We have an instinctual thing inside that knows what is true and what is true with another person in relationship, right? In modern society, we have been conditioned out of hearing that intuition. We don't use it very much. So it's starting to put practice towards listening to that intuition, because I was telling a story about Ito in Autism Land. Ito is a non-speaking autistic, and in one of his books, he tells the story of his mom reading him a book when he was little, and he was connecting by pointing to the characters when she was saying the characters, or maybe she was asking him the characters and he was pointing to them. I don't exactly remember, but the mom thought to herself, oh my gosh, he knows, like he knows what's going on in the book, he knows the characters. And that was her true intuition speaking to her, and she had told the husband about it, and the husband like shut it down, like, no, that couldn't be, like he doesn't know all that, you know. And I just wanted to mention that because I feel like that is meant for somebody to hear. And trust those things in those little moments. Grow those things, write them down, and say to yourself, I believe this, you know, I believe this. So there was a piece earlier we talked about that it was like we've been so heavily conditioned to see and perceive things a certain way. And I'm kind of deviating from the point here, but that even when we see things, we don't believe them.
Yeah.
Do you want to expand on that?
I think it comes down to a conditioned way of perceiving the world around us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're stuck with believing that things are a certain way, even if we start to presume competence, those old patterns and programs are still playing. So it's a gradual process of opening up to new
ways of interpretation, of seeing,
exactly.
of
So
understanding.
I think earlier in our failed recording, I mentioned something like, you had mentioned a story where you had parents being in disbelief after seeing videos of their kids spelling.
Yeah.
Like, I heard about presuming competence, know about it from you, heard it time and time again, but still they're surprised when they see their kid doing it.
They're surprised, and they're asking me, like, there's videos of me working with the child and me just holding the board up to keep them energetically grounded, engaged, and they are pointing without me touching them, and then the parent will still ask, they really spelled all that? I'm like, well, did you see it on the video?
Yeah. And I think I think my question from that was, well, number one, that it's a gradual process of really believing that beyond just,
I want to say that I'm not shaming in any way. I'm just shining a light on where we've been so conditioned to think and believe a certain way, especially about this population. So even when we see it, we still sometimes can't believe it.
Yeah. But if you're able to see that, like a clear demonstration that I'm here, I can communicate, I understand. But if they didn't have that tool of spelling, in what other ways are they like trying to communicate to you, you know?
Right. And yeah, exactly. And if you're not sensitive to those ways, you know, we have come to believe that, oh, we communicate with only just words, and so I'll only believe it when they're communicating with words, you know, or I'll only be able to see it that way. So it's like not being attuned to all the other ways that they're trying to communicate with you because they don't have their voice, right? And so that's when the intuition piece comes in. That's important, which everyone in my future schools will be taught about, will be practicing, so that way they can develop their own intuition around every individual there. And it's so important because I've realized over the years, the thing that has really moved me forward with each one of my clients and every challenge that I've come into with them was my intuition. It wasn't something that I learned on the outside. It was something inside telling me, yeah, with this person, this is what they need, or with this person, this is what's actually going on. And it's going to be different for every person. So that's why the intuitive piece is so important to create a place where real progress is being made, you know, with people who essentially don't have a voice. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, so many good things. Okay, so I have a few more points here, which I think we can get through pretty quickly. How are we doing on time? What time is it?
It's 10:57.
Okay. So many good things, and we're still recording.
Yes, and let me check the video. Oh yeah.
All right. Okay, little side note. It's like you want to cover everything, right? Little side note that's going to end. This is for myself too. When I'm going through this, I'm going to write this down so I can talk about it on my spiritual series about they don't communicate with words, but they are communicating basically through frequency, and they're teaching us how we've built up this like outside surface level mask of using words, and we started listening to people's words, and then we get lost because maybe people don't have the frequency to hold up the words that they're saying, right? Or maybe their words aren't based on any frequency of truth. I've seen this many times when I got sick and tried to go to practitioners who wouldn't even look me in the eye. But anyways, so they're teaching us to attune to like actual frequencies. I had a colleague make a video about this the other day. She's like, you know, we're learning to find helpers and teachers and practitioners based on resonance and frequency, not based on what they're saying or their credentials. And I like couldn't resonate with that more because there's so many people with so many credentials, and I'm like, yeah, that's bullshit.
Yeah, I had a patient tell me the other day. I told her to go to a cardiologist to check up on some stuff. She went to this person. She was like, yeah, he's like great, like you know, really good talk about him all over. She's like, I didn't like it that much. So.
Yeah.
And it was because of the vibe. You know?
Yeah, trust the vibe, especially in this day and age. Trust the vibe. So yeah, that'll be for the spiritual conversation of how they're really teaching us to attune to the truth. They really are. And I'll explain how and why. But anyways, next point. So foundation, core, what's going to be offered here. Letterboards, obviously. Letterboards is one of them.
I'm sorry, I actually kind of tuned out for a second. I'm sorry to everybody listening and to you, Eileen.
God damn.
So let me get this right. We're on the next point. In the school, and letterboarding is...
Letterboarding is it. Yeah, that's okay. And I'll just go over the points we went over so far as a recap.
Yeah.
Presume competence, understand brain-body disconnect and apraxia in this population, promoting regulation all around, and then the next point is utilizing the letterboards.
Okay.
But obviously, that's just for us to be able to gain a better understanding of who these people are. And, you know, a lot of them have so much to offer and so much to say. And it's also, you know, the individual means for expression. I don't think that's the only way that they can express, but letterboard is an amazing tool and can open up so many different things. And it obviously needs to be in the school, like, every day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not... Like, language is only one way to communicate. And like you said, it's really just for us who rely so much on
well,
words.
It's partially for us. I do believe that so many students get so much out of it from expression. I do think that you should, and you got to really tune into the energy, and like a letterboard relationship should never be pushed until it's time. But yeah. I think what's interesting about the letterboards though is that even though it's like relatively straightforward, we got some letters. You can click on them and touch them.
Yeah, because you're approaching it that way with a completely different underlying philosophy, presuming competence, whatnot. It separates completely from like the communication devices that are already there, right? Because I mean, motor-wise, same thing, pressing a button.
Yeah.
You know, but result-wise and the ability to like interact
result-wise, I mean, it's because this is like a rabbit hole because I see questions about this all the time. Well, why not just use a device or whatever? I'm not against devices. I am for whatever is supportive to that individual child.
Yeah. The
method and what's different about it is in the beginning of letterboard, you're not testing the child. You're not testing them to say, well, what was this answer? What was this answer? Do you know it? And you're also not asking them to choose a choice of something that they want, like opinion-wise. What you're doing is you're coaching a gross motor movement that they most likely don't have yet reliably. So what you're doing is, let's say I'm coaching them to spell the word apple. So I'm not saying, what word did I just say? Do you know how to spell it? No, I'm saying, okay, the first letter is A. like, go get the A. How does it feel to you to go get that A? So I'm helping them, okay, I'm initiating my motor. I'm feeling into my dominant hand. You know, I'll give joint compressions, touch here, and we do cross back. Like, this is what it feels like. So they feel what it feels like to cross and get that A and be reliable about it. And now, okay, how does it feel to move from A to the P? I got to shift my eyes down. I got to look over here. So what you're doing is you're training and coaching the whole body to develop 26 reliable gross motor patterns, you know, that when they're in a certain state of regulation and with somebody that they trust, they can keep their focus and awareness and body on the situation enough to be able to access the letters that they want. And when you develop those motor patterns reliably, then that's when you can start opening up to, like, okay, well, what do you want? What, you know?
Yeah, you know, that makes me think of something else, because like you had mentioned already, the controversy, the question that comes up, well, why can this person spell with this person but not this person? And that makes me think of, like, in school, when you have a teacher that you really like and really good at teaching, like, you learn so much more than whenever you have a teacher that's just not very good.
Oh my gosh.
So like your guide, your coach, it's really important to develop in that relationship and developing your own desire to learn. But I don't think the inability to spell with a certain person is necessarily a lack of desire or a lack of like of that person.
No, not
it's
at
a little
all.
bit different, but similar.
There's probably some energetic block that needs to be looked at, you know, moved, transmuted, and it doesn't always necessarily mean like I don't vibe with you and I don't like you. No, there's always a lot of times that hump to get over with body stuff.
Yeah, it's more of like the getting the tuning. Right?
Yes, like tuning it up correctly. Yeah.
But anyway, with the letterboarding piece and developing those motor like that's huge. And again, I guess I don't know. I haven't seen many of like the current spelling devices, those technologies or whatever. From what I'm understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, there's like a button will express an entire point of view or entire question or something like that. There's also individual words there, right? Yeah. Can you also like spell individual words on them?
You can. Yeah. You can. You know, that works for some kids, but for some kids, the sensory input is way too much while they're trying to coordinate their motor and all of that. That blue light might be too much. It might be stimulating some other parts of the brain. It just might be too complicated, whereas like the most low tech works out for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I'm not against the tech at all.
Yeah.
But
so if you speak in like scientific language, you're like controlling for all those other extraneous variables.
Totally.
So you got simple low tech thing. Hey, we're really just working on the motor pattern of coordinating what your eyes are seeing, what your hand is feeling, what you're being asked to do, what you want to do, and pairing that with a motor pattern of pointing, touching, and stringing together all these different motor patterns. So it's really training the motor all day.
It's training the motor.
And the better you get with that, the more the motor can reflect the intellectual.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there's so much that could be said on that, but I'm not going to go any further on it. Maybe that'll be for a future episode. But yeah, 100%. And obviously, just to mention, the letterboards will be utilized for children to be able to obviously build the motor patterns and everything we just talked about, but using age-appropriate education. Age-appropriate education for them to have access to respond to start to demonstrate to us what they've comprehended and what they know. So it's that type of thing as well.
Question. What about like the use of iPhones and iPads for kids who are obsessed with that in these kind of schools, you know?
So that's a loaded question, and we could probably do another whole episode on it. Like, how long have we been going?
Over an hour.
I think, you know what? Let's put a pin in that because I want to do a whole episode on that. When I'm going through it, I'm going to write it down.
Yeah, because we talk about like stimulation of one of these communication devices, probably doesn't even come close to comparing the stimulation of like an iPad or like YouTube addictions and
probably. And you know, there's no shame around this subject. This is only shining light on I feel like I love my interpretation of this and like my way of going about this. So I do want to talk about that whole situation.
Because I'm like, if you got a kid who's like, hey, they always have their iPad on, then they come to the school and it's like, well, do they get to have it during the day or do they not?
So that's a good question. We're going to talk about that, and my answer would probably be different for each individual depending on what my intuition says and what the family's telling me.
Will that lead to conflicts within the school about who gets the iPad?
Well, I don't know, you know. Those are going to be bridges that we're going to have to cross when we get there.
That's a very like specific operation question for the school.
Some people say like take it away cold turkey type thing. For me, I have kids and I have a kid right now where it's like his ability to regulate at this point is dependent on the iPad.
Yeah.
And if it's taken away like cold turkey, it's a weaning process with trust and support there, with the kid being directed with everything and being told everything beforehand, and like weaning. Just like my own beliefs on like addicts, like I don't believe in cold turkey, like unless that works for them.
Yeah.
But I think it could be detrimental if the person's not given the tools that they need. And that's another thing of not demonizing people who have addictions, not demonizing, you know, if you're in a situation where your kid has an addiction to an iPad, because life is hard. And it's like acknowledging it maybe and getting the right support that's resonant with you.
And the situation definitely isn't black and white.
It's not black and white.
We're talking about like other ways your kid might be communicating with him. You got the one kid who pull up YouTube clips and it feels
100%.
like he's communicating something very specific to you.
100%. Yeah, that would be on an individual basis, and I do feel like I have a lot to say on that.
Yeah.
Let's put a pin in it. Okay, so here's a piece that it's acknowledging, and this is where it can get taboo, but I don't care, because I'm about acknowledging what I truly believe is real and what I believe is true and what I've experienced and what I think is going to be best for everybody all around to be aware of. It's acknowledging that these kids are telepathic. A lot of them. I'm not going to say, oh, every kid is, but I'm going to say I've experienced this. I still experience this every single day. These kids are, and it's not only about them being telepathic, it's about they read energy. They experience energy. They can't just block it off. So that means that everybody's energy that they're carrying with their thoughts. You know, if you have a thought, you know, if you close your eyes and you scream like, hello, in your mind, like that carries a charge, you know, and then if you whisper, that carries a charge. And so all of your thoughts, which this is going to be in the spiritual series, modern society, we've all been conditioned to have an incessive stream of thoughts. Incessant? Incessant. So all these thoughts that are going by under our conscious awareness, not being watched, not being perceived, not being slowed down, are carrying a charge. And that charge is going through your body, that charge is going in your energetic field, and these kids are experiencing that charge. And we all are. But we have, you know, the motor conditioned movements to keep going about our patterns. You know, these kids, their bodies are affected by the energetic charges around them. So it would be very important for me as a leader to teach the staff to understand that your energy will affect these children. Your thoughts will affect these children. And not to say, oh, you have to change them now. You're having bad thoughts, da da da. It's, no, we're aware of this and we're working with this. And, you know, if you need support, you're going to get support. If you need to talk about something, you're going to be able to talk about it. You know, all the other places I've ever worked with non-speaking autistics, not saying that they were like bad people that I was under, but I did always get the feeling I'm not really supported and have somebody looking over my shoulder and I have to be doing the right thing and da-da-da-da-da. And don't get me wrong, I want us to be doing the right thing, but it's almost like an energy of like, I'm setting the stage for like, the vibration we hold here is integrity. And it's, we understanding that we make mistakes and we're not going to be perfect. Having the awareness that, you know, our energetic cleanliness is important.
Yeah, I think when you say that these non-speaking, this population is telepathic, I think the truth is humans are telepathic.
Yeah.
You know? And whenever,
we experience all the time.
Yeah, but whenever we're like stuck and conditioned in a paradigm where like the only way to communicate is through words, through nonverbal stuff, whatever, things that you can see or hear, then you lose that like ability, or it becomes conditioned out of you, or your ability to believe that that's possible is compromised.
It's compromised.
But whenever you're a non-speaking autistic person and your nervous system is set up the way that it is, you don't live in the objective reality that all of us live in. So that avenue and that ability becomes something that's developed and will show up probably more.
I mean, it's so developed, and I always explain it as, just to explain it simply, if you say they're telepathic, like people understand it, oh, it's this weird like superpower type thing, and it's like, oh, they're reading my mind, like what? It's like, no, it's an ability that is kind of like almost breathing to them. Like, I don't believe that many of them can shut it off in a way, and it's like, everything holds an energy and they're able to perceive that energy. So let's say you're right here and then one of my non-speaking autistic friends is right here and I'm thinking of a number most likely you're not going to pick up on it because you're not attuned to receiving that energy. Whereas this energy might be very loud to this person because they're sensing energetics is different from ours at a much higher caliber, as I always say. And they could pick up on, oh, she's thinking of the number 4. Like I hear the signal of what 4 is. They just have that ability. You know, coming from, like, I've been in this game for a long time, so I've done a lot of integrating of this reality that they are perceiving energy like this and reading energy. So it's very hard to put myself in the 3D mode of like, wait, this is real. Because I do remember being like, oh gosh, they can like hear my thoughts, you know, like. And then it really makes you rise to the occasion to get like super honest with yourself and be like, okay, well, what thoughts am I letting pass by that I don't want to keep, that aren't me, you know, that I don't want to be me? And what do I need to forgive myself for, type thing? There's so much. They're listening so much.
Yeah.
Healing for people.
There's a lot of catalysts to like reflect on when it comes to that topic. With telepathy, the thing that comes up for me, and we talked about it before, but I don't know if many people are talking about this or thinking about it at all, but because our main mode of communication is language, when we talk about telepathy, and even when we try to demonstrate telepathy, we're almost always using words, you know? But words, like if I have an idea, if I have a thought, if you think right now, well, what are my thoughts? You're probably gonna think, what words are in my head? But your thoughts and the words that come out, that's an encoding of whatever my actual thought is. Like my thought is more than just the
it's more than just the
word.
word.
It's what I feel, it's other ideas, and it's other stuff that I can't even put into words. So I don't put into words, and instead I crush it down into some crude language that we have in a word, and I hope you can get the same thing, because now you have to hear my word and you have to decode it, and then it'll like turn into something inside of you. So when it comes to telepathy, and it's like, oh, they can read my thoughts. Again, you might be thinking, oh, they know what words I'm thinking, but that's not it at all.
No, it's like they're digesting your energetic signature.
So when you talk about that, that's the energy.
They're processing your energetic signature.
Yeah. So when they demonstrate telepathy with words, they've just been able to successfully go from your words to energy to their energy to words that and spit it back out. And that's probably where like regular human telepathy falls apart. Is we're not very good at recognizing that whatever energy is inspiring my thoughts, whether it's mine or somewhere else, and even if I can recognize that it's from somewhere else, my ability to encode that into the same word that they have is not going to be up to par, because I'm so used to decoding energy from my own kind of ways and interpretation or whatever.
Yes, that's super deep right there, and it's super important. I feel like I'd have to give it another listen. Like I got it as you were saying it, and then it kind of faded away.
The main piece is what you're saying, is that telepathy is an energy thing.
It's an energy.
But that energy is so much bigger than the words we use to communicate. Just think of how many times you try to communicate to somebody and you say, the words just don't do good enough, you know? It's like, well, what is that? And how can you communicate those ideas more effectively? And you already know it's not with words. But we don't have full agency to like navigate that wordless domain like these non-speaking autistic people do. So when you talk about their ability to teach us, it's because they have so much more agency in that domain. And us, it's a process of waking up to realize that, hey, we have that too. We just have no development of that ability.
I have chills, you know? Because that's it.
So that's the spiritual.
That is the spiritual piece again, which I can't wait to go back through and list those things down and chat about. Yeah, you should.
So you gotta recognize the telepathy piece, and
you gotta recognize that, and people will recognize that, because I'm not going about creating a whole entire place and then like just not teaching about this, because I want to work from what I know is true, because I know that dissonance causes dysregulation in the body. So these guys will feel so much better if we're aware of this truth, we're feeling into this truth, we know it, and that's gonna already cause so much less dissonance in their body. Like we're gonna already be that much more connected. So it's not to say like, oh, like bring in this big amazing or woo woo or whatever thing. It's like, no, I'm just trying to work from truth here, you know?
I think the like blasphemy and like heresy and acknowledging telepathy in this world, in this space, is a misunderstanding of what telepathy is.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I understand.
I think people like to demonize things like words like telepathy, like, oh, that's of like the devil.
Yeah, it carries some baggage to it, you know.
Like,
but,
no, actually.
But if you think it like telepathy is just I'm thinking of words, so you can reproduce that word, and it's like a whole chance thing. Or if I had a number, you have a number. No,
it could express itself in that way, but no.
Yeah, there's a really good chance that telepathy is fundamental to all human communication. We just don't acknowledge it, because how do you study something that you can't see and you can't measure? We don't have the tools for it, or something like that. So true. So instead, we have to convert it to something objective, like our alphabet, like the English language, to say that, oh, I thought about this in a whole separate room, and they were able to spell it in a whole separate room without hearing me, without no other communication. Therefore, the only explanation is telepathy. But in truth, it's probably fundamental to human communication.
It is. And this is more towards the spiritual piece, but that's how the world has gotten so out of balance, because we've lost the ability to connect with the radiation of energy. So it's like energy radiates, whoop, and it's like we can't even tune into that, the truth of energy radiating, and we just start using words. And so people can lie with words, and then we start to not attune to energy. So we're like, okay, I'm listening to what they're saying and what they told me, and I'm going off of their word, when, like I said, the truth of their word might be missing. And so they're teaching us to get sensitive again. Like, the pendulum has swung so far this way. It's so out of balance that they're all coming in here being like, wake up, get sensitive to this, start attuning to energy again, start attuning to the frequency again, start looking at what's right in front of you, even though it's not like in this perfect, pretty box that like you've been taught that it's supposed to be of what truth is. And yeah, it's that. It's big. Like when you were talking, I just felt how big it is. And that's why so many people resonated with the telepathy tapes, because it's like waking people up. Yeah. Like what, like consciousness is rising, awareness is rising because of what's happening.
Yeah, this idea definitely goes into a much bigger thing. It's just like the nature of an idea or a thought. Like we all think that our own thoughts are our own. They come from inside of us. And that my thoughts are my thoughts only, and you don't have access to them. But in truth, we're probably in a sea of information at all times, and because of the way we interact with that in a non-physical way, in me it'll spark a certain thought, and you it'll spark a separate thought, but ultimately it's from the same body and collection of intelligence or information. It's just encoded differently and decoded differently in each individual person. So like if we have an idea that I own my thoughts, or my thoughts are from me and come from inside of me, then you could never know what's going on inside of me. Yeah. But we're in the same world. If we're in the same location. When you start to realize this stuff, you start to realize, like, at some level, everybody knows. And everybody sees you in a way. Like, they might not be attuned to that part of them, and that part might not be an expression, but everybody knows. Yeah. So that's big.
That's a lot.
It's the biggest fun.
That is real big. The last thing I'll mention on that, because it came to my mind, was one of the non-speakers on the telepathy tapes said, me spelling, like, though it's valuable, it's like putting an elephant into a straw. Yeah. Like using words is like putting an elephant into a straw. So the truth of everything is so beyond like these little words, right? But that's why their words are so impactful and meaningful, because a lot of times they just hold this freaking energy that came from somewhere else type thing, that something that neurotypicals aren't attuned to or experiencing yet, most likely on a massive scale.
Yeah. And I mean, again, this goes more into the spiritual stuff that you're going to want to talk about more in the future. But I mean, that all hints at, like, even what we're talking about with the school, it's ultimately, that's a very small level thing that might help a couple individuals here or there, but it's really to like grow all of humanity, like towards a new recognition of what's going on with us collectively. And how we need to shift, again, the whole paradigm of the way we relate to ourselves, the way we relate to other people, the way we relate to the world, and everything as a whole.
Oh gosh, so true. As a whole,
this happens to be the crack in the whole facade that we live in, that is our society, where a different kind of truth is leaking in. Through the non-speaking of this.
And I think that's what people felt when they listened to the telepathy tapes. Like, they didn't know why, but they were getting chills. They didn't know why, but they were so pulled to this. My employee, first person that I've hired, a long time ago, I asked her, do you believe in telepathy? And she's like, no. And I was like, okay. And she's like hardcore Christian. And so I was like, okay. Didn't say anything else about it. Like a long time later, she somehow had listened to the telepathy tapes, and something in her woke up. And she's very attuned, very gifted and everything. And it's just interesting because I was like, when I first asked you about it, like, you completely were like, yeah, no, that's crazy, you know? And people are shifting because it's like, oh wait, of course I wouldn't believe that with my old 3D materialistic model, but when I hear truth and I'm already attuned to it, I know it. Yeah, I know it. Okay, let's move on. It's getting really, it's getting ridiculous here. All right, so number 6 I have, which I think will go to promoting regulation, and something that I just forgot to mention is moving energy. Using movement not only as purposeful movement, but also moving energy, allowing energy to move. So if there's a kid and we're doing a lesson or whatever in this new school and they have to get up and jump and move their hands like this, it's like allowing those things. It's not like, okay, you have to come sit back down here and spell. It's like, no, precedence is regulation. So if I see that child has, you know, a surge of energy going through their body right now, I understand that they need to process that, right? Or if a kid is looking like they're cooped up and they need to go and move some energy out, or I direct them through movement. It's like those things being well understood. And so I think that goes to promoting regulation. Also practices for staff to do this in the morning to move their energy, because energy will get stuck, energy will get stagnant. We have all been conditioned under emotional repression, so we don't move energy out. So this will be a whole place of acknowledging that and supporting that, because I want a healthy business. I want a healthy movement, right? Because I mean, that's why I created my own business, because in so many ways I felt so, like, I'm saying not on my awareness level where I could speak it out. It's like I was like contracted in places, and I feel like you might feel that way in your job too, like feeling like you're in a box and you can't move in a certain way. So movement will be a big piece. But yeah, allowing time for processing. And also, you know, a lot of schools and programs will have like, okay, let's do this work. We have to start being productive and doing this work. No, a lot of it's going to be about just being and promoting regulation. Like, will there be age appropriate information and education taught? Yes. But just as importantly, it's going to be about regulation and moving body and allowing for space and time to be an experience.
Yeah, if fight or flight is something that makes regulation harder, and you like interrupt the fight or flight response too much, and instead we learn to just store whatever is going on, then that ability to let it go through is going to be really important, you know? It's similar to like when people have like lots of panic attacks, and the method of controlling that is to get on like anxiety medication or whatnot, and you just stop it. That actually doesn't get rid of it. You get off of the anxiety medication, the panic attacks come back, you know?
100%.
Like, it needs to be gone through, even though it's incredibly difficult.
Right, and it needs to be moved through. And I have experience with that. I had years where I experienced panic attacks and maybe told you here and there, didn't tell anybody about it. And it was because, you know, we're conditioned under emotional repression. I am a very sensitive person. Somebody who has high anxiety and we're about to meet each other, I can feel them 5 minutes before we meet each other. Like, those energetic connections and entanglements are real. And like, the best thing that I did for my health was acknowledging that and allowing time for the processes to move those energies through me and not shame myself for those energies. Like, I realized over this, it's actually my gift. It's my gift. Like, that's how I can be so compassionate and understand and tune into these kids at a certain level, because I've been there. Like, you remember when those times when I thought I was freaking crazy? I thought I was crazy. Like, because I had so much energy in me, I don't even want to say what, you know, some of the things that I experienced, but it's real. And I think more and more people are waking up to their emotional repression. So if you have panic attacks, most likely you're a very sensitive person who needs to start putting some time and energy on their own emotions and processing those.
Yeah. Easier said than done, but
easier said than done.
Needs to happen to move through. For sure.
And that's another thing I want, you know, as a holistic offering space and teaching space, I'd want to like do dance classes and movement classes.
Yeah, because I mean, this isn't just for non-speaking autistic people. I mean, it's ultimately for everybody. You keep talking about the people who work at a place like this. They need to be like steeped in the same stuff too. They also need to be regulating themselves and doing that. And in that way, you're affecting not just the clients or anything like that. You're affecting them, the workers, the families, and that'll extend out into the community. So hopefully you set up a hub that transfers to everywhere around, you know? And if you have multiple hubs there, We're talking about like whole networks where these
Oh
ideas.
yeah, I'm so excited, and it's happening, and I'm excited to share the spiritual series story with you on how this all began. And I'm just feeling grateful in this moment to have the courage to talk about it, because so many times I would try to talk about it and I really felt all the doubts of like people being like, well, that's just wishful thinking, or oh yeah, of course you can say that, you have all the time in the world, like I don't have time for this, and or just like stuff like that, which I'm not blaming anybody. This is just the type of doubts I would have and the fears I would have. And at this point, it's so strong in me that I know it's true, and I know it's being born, and I know it's coming through. So I feel really grateful. So thank you for having this conversation with me, babe.
Yeah, it's fun.
And being like my person.
Yeah.
To, you know.
After we do this, I get like so amped up afterwards. You know, like at some point we
Let's
gotta
go
stop.
work out.
At some point we gotta stop, but this is fun. It's exciting.
I'm ready to stop. I feel a little bit gassed. I feel gassed. And yeah, we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there.
What are your other points without?
There's nothing too much other. I had just mentioned things here and there about autonomy. So like needing some alone time, not with somebody telling them what to do, like a safe space to have alone time, energy clearing, that type of thing. So I mean, I didn't mention this earlier, but I do see, and I would love to be this person and obviously have other people doing this, but a time for each kid to come into the room with certain frequencies and tunes, and just, you know, like Reiki practitioners. Like I'm not certified in Reiki or anything like that, which is energetic clearing. But I've had so many beautiful moments with my clients where it's like, you know, the intuition is leading the session, and they might be so high sensory wise, and I'm thinking of one of my beautiful little angels. She'll get so, it's not violent or anything like that, but it's so much energy, and her face is flushed, and she's sweating, and it's like she cannot come back down. And I had her head in my lap, and I had like my hand on the back of her neck and on her forehead, and I was breathing, and I was counting, and she was counting with me with her sweet angelic voice. She is seriously an angel. And it's 1, 2, 3, and we did that for like 3 rounds, and it's like she was able to come back down. And so it's like having that type of stuff in their environment every day. I think it's so important for these highly sensitive people, you know, just energetic hygiene. Yeah, and that's it. God, it's just crazy how much information has come out.
Yeah.
This has been held in for a while because we just haven't made the time and space. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, wrap up will be, stay tuned for this series. Probably our next episode will be on integrative reflexes and brain body stuff. And if you have any questions at all, please DM me on either TikTok, Facebook, but Facebook I'm a little less likely to see it quickly, or Instagram, and I'll leave those in the show notes. Thank you for listening.
Cool.
All right.
Woohoo.
Woohoo!
All right.
I'll clap.
Oh, thank you. Do it again, loud. Good.